Everyone, many thanks for joining us today, either here in person or online. We'll just start off with a karakia, and I'll ask Councillor Lambert to do that for us.
Kia ora tātou, me karakia. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina kina ki uta, kia mā tara tara ki tai. E hia ki ana, te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, ti he mauri ora. Mauri ora.
Kia ora, Councillor Lambert, thanks for that. Could I have apologies, please?
We have apologies from Councillor Foss, from Peter Eden and Dr. Roger Marker for today.
Thank you. Could I ask someone to move those?
Yep, moved.
Councillor Van Beek, Councillor Taylor, second. Thank you. Now, we just have some housekeeping here, particularly with some public in the room today. So if I could just run through these. This meeting has been live streamed on Council's Facebook page, so available for viewing at a later date. In an earthquake, drop, cover and hold. If the shaking is long or strong, when shaking subsides, leave the building through the nearest exit and proceed immediately towards Napier Hill along Dalton Street to Tiffin Park. Evacuation: if emergency alarm sounds, immediately evacuate the building through to the nearest exit and proceed to the assembly area, which is the grass at the corner of Dalton and Voltaire out that direction. Emergency exits clearly signed. Council chamber is currently designated as a public place, and the council policy is that 1 metre physical distancing is required, and if that is unachievable, we advise the use of face masks. Toilets located down the hall and to the left of the chamber entrance. Thank you. Could I call for any conflict of interest declarations, please? There being none. Move on. So confirmation of the 16th of June minutes of our last meeting. We have someone that was there move that those are a true and accurate record.
I believe I was there.
Councillor Van Beek, thank you for looking after that for me. Can we have a seconder?
I'll second.
Councillor Taylor, thank you. All those in favour?
Aye.
Right, so now we'll move on to staff quickly bring us up to speed with why we're here today and the process. So I'll pass it over to Lauren. So Lauren's our project manager for this working party on Possum control. With her is Mark Mitchell, who works on the Biosecurity team, and also got to mention welcome John Simmons, who's been our independent advisor during this process. Thank you.
Right, good morning everybody. Apologies for the delay. We're just going to do a quick recap of the process thus far, just so everyone can have a base understanding of where we're at. So initially we... moving closer or?
Yeah, but microphone a bit closer. Just pull it towards you.
That's it, better? Okay, so the process thus far is that we conducted a Section 17A review in 2019, and from there the review has been established. So we initiated the partial plan review in 2021, and from there we've been able to establish a biosecurity working party. We've drafted our proposal, we've done external consultation, and we've also done consultation in a public space as well from the 1st to the 31st of July. Leading on to today, we're now at the hearing process. Oh, hang on, where am I going? Got some things going on. Okay, so the process today and for the run sheet today, this is our list of submissions. So everyone speaking here today will hopefully be present. If not, we will provide a written statement to those unable to attend. Okay, so the process after the hearings. We then go into deliberations on the 6th of September. We're then able to collate staff reports and individual responses to each submission, and then we go through to council decision for the 28th of September. If I can please remind all councillors to please confirm the 6th of September in your calendars, just to make sure that we are all there and we can form a quorum. Okay, after the 28th of September, we then need to lead into the finance and revenue review, and then we also go through into the long-term plan. Still be a few more consults coming up. Okay. And that's pretty much it for, okay. We can just get into the submissions.
Thank you. You okay, Mark? You got nothing to?
No, I mean, we did have a presentation, a bit more background about why we're doing the PCA review and whatnot, but given time and people are already behind in their submission points, we might as well just truck on.
Okay, many thanks. Look, we do just have one last formality, and that is the recommendations there in item 4. So the first one is to for the Biosecurity Working Party to receive and consider the written submissions. And second, that the Biosecurity Working Party waives the submissions closing deadline and allows inclusion of 3 further submissions after that date. 1, Troy Duncan; 2, Annika Scotland; and 3, Charlotte Pedersen. And third recommendation, that the Biosecurity Working Party receives and notes the staff responses to the submission theme. So if we're happy with those, Councillor Van Beek,
Moved.
we'll move
Second.
that. And second, John Simmons. Thank you. All those in favour?
All right.
Great. Right, now to the fun. So welcome our submitters today. We've received a total of 150 written submissions, which I think is quite a good result. Some good interest from the public out there on this topic. So as Lauren said, we've got a schedule today of 14 submitters. Some will be spoken statements. I think 3 or 4 of those, and the rest will be in person. So first up, we've got Jerry Greer. So welcome, Jerry. So just to run through the process, each speaker has 10 minutes, and you can use that time as you may. So speak for 10 minutes or speak for less, and allow time for questions and answers.
Oh, thank you, Chair. For those who don't know me, I'm Jerry Greer. We've, wife and I have been farming at Argyle East, Central Hawke's Bay for 33 years, and quite frankly, I don't know where the time's gone. I'll start up by saying, look, I fully support this strategy of the compulsory use of a contractor, and to be quite honest, I can't wait for it. It can't happen too soon. But the reasons for my support, I'll take you through a bit of history from where we see it from where we've lived for the last 33 years. So for those who don't know, the Browers in Argyle East, Central Hawke's Bay, boundaring the Munganuku River. And since having that farm, we've also bought 2 other blocks that bound to the Waipawa River, which is only about 3 or 4 k's away. So we're farming 800 hectares in that immediate area. When we first went to the Brow 33 years ago, possums were epidemic levels, to the point where I didn't really realise that titoki trees had berries on them, and the titoki trees never had new growth showing on them. They looked unhealthy, and we thought, oh, it was the droughts that were knocking the trees around. But not long after we were there, my father-in-law at the time turned up one Sunday morning with 15 dead possums on the motorbike. He said, "You wouldn't believe it, I've just found those in the titoki trees in daylight." So from that time on, every weekend, even with my young kids, we went out with a Ken Terrier, and we were getting 15 or 20 possums every weekend, and some in the exactly same spots where we saw the ones the previous weekend. So it was epidemic, to say the least. And it was quite alarming because we farm beef and deer, and TB to me is just quite a scary thought. So, it's the other, when we first went to the Brow, we asked the previous owners why they didn't have roses in their gardens. They said because the possums just devastated the place. Well, to this day, my dear wife's planted probably over 200 roses, and they've never looked so good. The titoki trees have certainly improved, and that happened, I think it was early 90s, that there was a bait drop on the rivers, Central Hawke's Bay, and I believe now that was basically to get rid of the rabbits, but it was a carrot drop. It absolutely nuked the possums at the time as well. So 2-3 years on from that, we started to see things change around at home in terms of bird life improving and things like that. So when the PCA program was introduced, we elected to use a contractor and have done to this day, simply because there was only 2 of us on the farm, and there's no time to do another job like that. And to be quite honest, you've got to know what you're doing. So we've used it from the word go, and to this day now, we've seen our titoki trees really healthy. Bird life has gone mad. Like yesterday, we probably counted 10 or 15 tuis running around our garden, and the bird song is unbelievable. Whereas 33 years ago, we wouldn't even have seen one. But in the last 2 years, we have seen, and staff here will know that I've been on their case, we've seen a resurgence of possums in our area. And, seeing them on the road going into Waipawa at night, and all sorts. And there was, I think it was 2 years ago on our annual possum killing, possum baiting thing, the contractor baited them 1 week. And we went around, or my son went around a few days later, and there was 9 possums under one bait station, which really sounded alarm bells to us all. The nearby bait stations all had lesser numbers, but nevertheless we spotted there was a problem, which we recorded back to council here. So in terms of the possums coming back, I asked the contractor who was there the last year when he came, and I said, well, how many around us are using a contractor? And he said, you're one of the only ones. So I saw alarm bells. And so our properties are all possum free now, our own properties are. So I thought, well, I'll do my own investigation. So I rang around a lot of the neighbouring farmers and property owners, and tried to get an understanding what was going on. So I've got 5 answers that you'll find quite interesting. The first one was the land ownership changed, so the new owners weren't aware of the PCA program. And when you're saying landowners, that page, you're talking 1,000 hectare property, so go figure. And then number 2, some were not doing anything because they bounded the river, which was being poisoned regularly by the regional council. Number 3 was we were just shooting possums when they felt like it. 4, with a growing number of lifestyle blocks, and some with bush, over 4 hectares, they were not aware of their obligations. And then there is the farmers doing their own baiting, but being consistent on their baiting comes to question. So when these results, it's obvious why possum numbers are increasing, and at an alarming rate in some areas. I totally support this compulsory use of a contractor. It's going to give us consistency right across the whole region in terms of possum control and management. There's several areas I'd like to be considered, is that we need to look at smaller blocks than 4 hectares for possum control, and also need to look at parks and reserves in the urban areas, because as I see it, biosecurity doesn't stop at the urban boundary. And just further to that, and I'm quite happy to take questions, further to that, it's using a contractor for us is about $1,500 a year. So it was a no-brainer for us, knowing that the job's done. Periodically, we went round and checked the bait stations when we do our jobs, and baits are still in the bait stations, which tells volumes. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. It's definitely got time for some questions.
Yeah, so you had a contractor coming, g'day, Jerry. You had a contractor annually coming to your farm?
Yes,
Okay, and
all three blocks. He did all 3 blocks on the same day.
at $1,500?
Yep.
Okay, good, excellent. And that was the same contractor that also, you asked the question whether they actually were doing any of your neighbours. How many contractors are you aware of in your region that are available?
I think there's 4 or 5 available in St Hawke's Bay. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
John?
Thanks, Jerry. That's a good insight. Just a query I had, who owns the infrastructure that's on the property in terms of bait stations and so on? Is that yours as the property owner or the contractor who is undertaking the work?
Good question, because from time to time the bait stations come off where they are set. So I believe the contractor will be paying for that in that $1,500 we're paying. That if the bait station's had it, he puts a new one up.
And a corollary to that or follow-up is, when you canvassed the other landowners, what was the feeling about the use of contractors to do this work?
I didn't really get onto that one because I didn't really want to stir the pot, but they all realised that we had a possum problem.
Mark?
Am I able just to provide some information there in regards to the bait stations? The regional council purchases those and provides them to the contractors.
Okay. Thank you.
We've got time for one more question. No, I'll ask one then, Jerry. So what do you see as an outcome financially? So you're spending $1,500 now. If the regional council takes back over the process and goes all contractor, what would your ideal outcome be in terms of on your rates bill?
Well, I think there also you're talking about including urban into the rates bill. I think there should be a distribution. I mean, we probably should still be paying a reasonable amount because that's where the possum population are breeding. But the urban need to be some part of that, because biosecurity, as I say, doesn't stop at the boundary, and we're all benefiting from bird song even in urban areas.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Jerry.
Thank you.
Right, so next up we've got Tim Gilbertson. Welcome, Tim.
Thank you, Councillor, Mr. Chairman. 40 or 50 years ago, we had a thing called the Rabbit Board, and then we had the Pest Destruction Board, and everyone was rated, and we had guys coming out, well, originally guys with horses and packs of dogs, and then we had guys with motorbikes and spotlights and rifles who went all over every farm in Hawke's Bay. As I say, everyone was rated, and they controlled the rabbits very successfully. And I was 10 or 12 years old, and my parents used to say to the Rabbit Board guys, can you shoot the possums? Because like Jerry said, the place was absolutely chock-a-block with possums. And they said, no, we're the Rabbit Board, we shoot rabbits. Our boss won't let us shoot anything else but rabbits. But occasionally they did, and we give them a dozen a beer and they'd shoot some rabbits, shoot some possums. And I was 10 or 12 years old, and I thought to myself, even at that age, I thought, they're out there with guns, there's bloody possums everywhere, you can see the red lights and spotlights, they're all over the farm, they're all over Hawke's Bay, why don't they shoot the possums as well? So I fully support the submission. I support what I think Jerry said. We've got possums coming back. I'm one of those guilty parties because I'm on the river. I don't get a contractor in because you guys pay for the rivers, and that's most of our possums. So the question I ask is, if you've got these, and I totally support what you're going to do. I congratulate you for reinventing the wheel 50 years later. The cats are endemic. The cats are eating the geckos, which really pisses me off. We don't care about farms if we get TB or whatever, or toxin. And I think I said in my submission we lost 250 aborted lands. It's $40,000. So I'm paying you $6,000 or $7,000 in rates. So I'm paying you for water consents. I'm paying you for poles. So I'm paying my total payment last year was $5,000 in rates, $40,000 in lost income, and you guys are not killing the cats or the rabbits. So I asked the question I asked 40 years ago, 50 years, well, I was 10 years old, so it's a long time ago. Why don't you shoot everything else? Why are you doing this? And the other question I ask, if you're doing this, talk to DOC, who've got no money, because all they do is reinfest Hawke's Bay with possums. So totally support the concept. As I say, they did 50 years ago quite successfully, but there are a few fatal flaws in your approach, which is the other pests, and it really annoys me that the cats are eating my ginkgos. I like my ginkgos, they're absolutely beautiful. And talk to Doc, because all they do, and you live in Norwood or somewhere, you live at, not Norwood, that's in the name, you live at Wakarara, they just keep coming and coming, coming. Thank you. I've made up some time for you too.
Depends how many questions. Thanks a lot, Tim.
Okay.
So we'll go to questions, plenty of time.
So, I understand everything is done by trap or by poison, so.
Kids with guns, fox terriers.
Yeah, but, of course, we can't ask our contractors to go and shoot cats because, you know, we use a different tool or different tools. That's possibly, how could you see, what idea have you got that actually we could include cats in this as well?
Well, the original, it's slightly off the subject. The original thing is to do exactly, and I've been submitting on this for years, that you treat cats like dogs. You have to register cats because the feral cat thing, all you're doing is aiming at the bottom of the cliff. We get, your question is, I don't know how you have to poison them, you do something. We poison with cat traps. Well, actually, yeah, we put traps out. We catch about 3 cats a month and that's just skimming the surface. So we put a trap out. So if your guys are going around, contractors, putting things up trees, they can put cat traps out, presumably. With poison them. There's got to be a way. The technology is there.
And you're talking about cats and you have sheep aborting.
Yes.
Is that right across the whole region, or is that just endemic in your particular area?
Toxoplasmosis. It's all the South Island. In the South Island, they're putting out neutered tomcats to stop them breeding because it's such a problem. Toxoplasmosis. A young cat can poo out 100,000 bugs in a morning or day. The figures are astronomical.
Okay.
So yeah, they're putting out neutered cats because no one's doing anything. So they're getting toxo, which is, I say, that's $40,000 of lost income. That's just for me. And okay, it's intermittent. It doesn't happen every year, but there's a massive problem there that's completely overlooked. And the other thing is the geckos and the birds. And as I fully support Jerry, my neighbour's killed about 180 cats in the last 7 or 8 years. He's got native birds flying around left, right, and centre. It's fantastic. And we've got a slight improvement, but we're on the way to the beach. So people go to the beach, and every summer there's under the wool shed there's a cat with some kittens, which someone's just chucked out the door as they go past to the beach. So there's a massive problem, and I congratulate you for, as I say, for doing the regional wide contract. That's the only solution for possums, but you only do that much of the problem.
On.
I think, Tim, if it's any consolation, I think the report actually sort of predicates that in the future, a wider biodiversity target group will be feasible once this program is implemented. Yeah, it's logical that it leads on to much greater biodiversity gains targeting those other species. And I think
Very pleased to hear that.
I think there are moves afoot to take a stronger line on the feral cat issue as well. So
I'd like to hear that, but I remember
watch this space.
a comment a few years ago when someone was asked this very question, my guy said, and he said he talked to a well-known politician in Hawke's Bay, and he said, we don't move on cats, we don't want to lose the little old lady's vote. So I'm a wee bit sceptical about that. But I hope it happens. And I hope we build a dam one day, so I'm a bit... Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Different hearing, sorry.
Thanks, Tim.
Tough with them. Keep up shooting those cats.
Yeah, amazingly, we're back on schedule somehow. So number 3, speaker up is Paul Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, councillors, for the opportunity to submit today. I'm going to keep it relatively brief and hopefully we'll get a few questions around it. I farm in Tutera, north of Napier. We're in an endemic area. We promote biodiversity. It's hugely increased since I've been there. We do our own plantings with the support of the Regional Council. I've been really rapid. I've been there 23 years. Prior to that, I was at Dannyvert, so I was in Horizons. Prior to that, I leased a big block to the north of Wellington, off the Wellington Regional Council. Well, I still have another farm there. Okay, and all councils have had different approaches to control. I've had multiple agencies, and I'll quote what I heard from Bloomberg this morning. I've been watching American TV a fair bit with recession and full employment coming up, okay? And the Mayor of New York was on Bloomberg, and he said, anybody that comes with a cause to my table, first thing I say, have they been collaborating? Who have you talked to before you come to me? Because everyone comes with their hand out, and everybody wants something. With the multi-digit rate increases we've seen from this council, makes me ashamed a little bit to some degree. We need to deliver efficiency. As we move amongst the generations, we need to be better at what we do. And what worries me in the pest control area is we've got a whole lot of new technology. Yes, we had problems in Tutiara, fully accept that, we're in an endemic area. You know, first, when I went to Tutiara 23 years ago, any brassica crop I put in, I think I can give you the figures, I think for a week, they caught 96 possums each night on the edge of just one trap, one poisoning on the edge of a brassica crop, okay? The counts now, I have 2 agencies. I have the Regional Council, who I have actually discontinued with, and I have, that's run through the iwi, and I have Osprey, okay? They're different approaches. The staff turnover with the Regional Council and their contract is really high. With Osprey, I can specify the contractor. The contractor has been doing it for years. They run across a number of properties in the lower North Island. They were funded by this council in the long run, their operations, which was quite a good arrangement under Fenton Wilson, okay, which was a tidy arrangement really. We're down to they can do a 700 hectare operation in Tutiara and they'll get 3 and 4 possums. I've been blessed in Tutiara. I haven't had TB. My block in Wellington has had. I've been in an endemic area in Wellington my whole life. I was brought up there. Okay, that's been in Dannyvert. I never saw horizons once. I never saw any pest control operations. Never had TB and never had many possums. Different areas demand different things. The progress we've made in Tutiara has been unreal. The reason I discontinued with the Regional Council is Osprey, I have an indemnity with them. So if something happens with one other person on the property, whether it be vehicle or unrelated, they will cover basically an insurance policy with them. Regional Council, it was a different person every time. They were very inexperienced. They just couldn't handle the vehicles they had, you know, and it just wasn't getting the outcomes we need on that property. And that may be a personal experience, but I do talk to a lot of people across a lot of properties, probably in the lower North Island. And so the funding of it worries me a little bit, you know. Things change, and it's funny to watch Wellington in this space because urban people were never interested in what we were doing in terms of possum control originally on rural blocks in Wellington. You know, it was just a rural issue. It was guys that had cattle and they were worried about it because of TB, the old historic approach, okay? Now it's the urban people that are doing it with the trapping, with the support. They've done a grand job to promote the biodiversity around the bushier suburbs and the leafy urban burns, if you like. The rural guys have gone off the boil a bit. You know, the rural side of it's gone. When I went to Padanui School, we all came from a farm. Now, if you go to Padanui School, no one comes from a farm. So at the end, there's still a few big blocks there. But at the end, that's very different. The other thing is I chair a company called Aerospread here, okay? And we're moving a lot towards drones, and we have 3 drones, okay? They cart between, we've got one coming that can cart up to 250 kilos, okay? We've got one at the moment that carts 37 kilos. We're doing a lot of Osprey and other council work with that drone. So this is the technology changing and accessing it. So I don't have a person on my farm. This drone arrives. It's got 12 bait balls in the base of it. It's unobtrusive. You don't even notice it's there. Comes on, does a targeted operation. We're working to the point, Osprey particularly working on the technology where the heat-wise you can pick up where the vectors are. So you can just zero in on that block and do it and get some efficiency out of it. And Osprey, after a lot of debate, because things take a lot of debate, they say we had a poisoning operation behind me. I'm surrounded by bush, I'm surrounded by carbon farms, I'm surrounded by the Kiwi Reserve, and I have farmland and dairy farms on the bottom. So, you know, it has to be targeted control. Yesterday was the first day I saw a camper van on our road for 3 years. They come back, normally we have 10 or 12 a day. Those people are very aware when they buy my product, what I'm doing on farm. And I've got to be completely in sync with what that German customer or even what that Chinese one today expects. So I ask you to think through closely, okay? I really want some efficiency around the rate increases. That's really pissed me off, to be quite honest, okay? Because our cost structure, our value structure is high. People tell us to move up the value chain. Well, I've got $10 a kilo now for my milk. I've got $10 a kilo for my lamb. You know, I can't get much more. I'm one of the most expensive suppliers in the world of that product into supermarkets across the world now. Okay, but what I know is my costs are blowing out big time. Okay, and what I know is I still need to be able to deliver on the world change, and I need to be resilient. I need to be environmentally conscious. I need that biodiversity because my customers are asking those questions. They're asking what my pest control program is, how I do it. All those questions are there when I fill my forms out each time. So thank you again for the chance to submit. Okay, fully open to questions, and I'm an open type person. So
thanks a lot, Paul. I'll kick off. So. Yeah, thanks heaps, and particularly around the rates and the rating increase and a bit of history there. So would you be in favour of going down this track of all contractor model, and it's going to cost, you know, the council so much money, but rather than just look at it as tack on another rates increase, we actually stop doing something else that may not be as efficient or as effective. And so we drop something here and we pick up so would that be more?
Big time, Will,
Yeah.
big time. You know, it's a trade-off, okay?
Yeah.
I can't have everything I want. I'd love a big green tractor like you, but I can't get one. Said to my brother, he bought a John Deere. I said, I can't afford a Deere, they're too dear.
Thanks, Paul. Any other questions?
All good.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Great, thank you.
Right, actually, I have got a question. So currently, are you paying for any pest control on your farm? Or is it all
I
through
pay for my levies, don't I?
Yeah,
Okay, so and that's actually quite expensive. Levies are quite dear. That farm I'm on would have about, on a beef levy, would have about $12,000 a year beef levy. Okay, and that covers a variety of things, but one of them's the osprey. Okay, I pay when I buy my tags for osprey.
Yep.
Okay, I pay when I kill something at the works.
So somebody like Jerry, he would not pay those levies, or
Depends on whether he's a finisher or how he works his nate tags.
you still pay that?
Yep. Okay. Excellent. Yeah, we all pay. Don't worry. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Paul. Racing through here. Submitted for Jake Balcock. Is Jake here? Welcome, Jake. Yeah,
How you going?
far away. Good, thank you.
Just in the nick of time by the looks of it. I mean, anyway, I'm running out of time before 8 p.m. cutoff.
Yeah,
And
I
you
left
press-
that to the
and you
last
press
minute.
send. Yeah, very good.
I didn't know you could do late submissions, so I probably would have left that to the next day if I knew.
But if everybody finds out, then one day we have to say, those 100 late submissions, we're not going to accept.
All right, hey guys, I'm here today. I'm wearing 3 hats. So yeah, I'll try and get through them all. Firstly, I'm a possum control contractor in Hawke's Bay. Been doing it for quite a while. My business, Rural Pest Services, has been running since 1999. So yeah, we've been to every corner of the region, up the ranges, along the coast, up and down every river, many times, and most of the places in between. Second hat is a ratepayer. I live in Hawke's Bay. I've got a place out in Bayview. Wife and kids out there. And which brings me on to my third hat, which is a horticulturalist. I've got a small citrus block out there, and probably not really big in the big scheme of things, but through being a contractor, I work on a lot of horticultural orchards in Hawke's Bay, and none of them are really to do with possums. It's all other pests. So yeah, I'll start with my contractor hat. I've put down here, I don't know, as far as whether I support this or not. Yeah, but unsure on the proposed changes. You've put down, you're changing from a landowner thing to a contractor-based model. And I've sort of got a bit more understanding of that now, but all of the clients that I have are using me as a contractor, so it is already a contractor-based model from my lens, where I'm looking. I've got some reasons. I think it's a good idea. I think potentially there's more work opportunities as this is rolled out. The whole region's going to be needing a contractor, so there's more work there for us. They're putting commercial forests into the mix. I mean, it's just a no-brainer to me. It's just a reservoir of possums, and they haven't been doing their bits, so they should be subject to the same rules as everyone else. Just makes it fairer. The final one, yeah, it looks like the profit margins are going to be much higher through this thing. The indicative per hectare rate was 300 to 600% higher than what we're charging at the moment. So yeah, I'm all for that. But yeah, I'm not that easy, so I've got some reasons against it. The first one, I've got about over 400 clients in PCA areas that I do possum control for. And under this new model, I could potentially lose all of them to another contractor, because they wouldn't have a choice what contractor they used. The large-scale ground-based contracting, We've seen this happen in other areas, in other agencies, and I think it's probably less effective at targeting all possum habitats. As the area increases, the resources get spread out further, and the potential for one area of habitat to be missed starts to go up. And you end up with pockets of possums in the very hard to get to areas. I've already had a couple of clients decide they're not going to be doing any more possum control until this new program comes in. So I've lost a couple of clients over the next couple of years until this potentially comes in, but they're not keen to pay for something that they're going to get for free in a couple of years' time. The other reason, I mean, it goes back to that first point, client and contractors have the flexibility to change their services. So if a client doesn't like some particular contractor, they can get another one. And vice versa, if a contractor finds a particular farmer hard work, he just doesn't have to work there. Seems to work. A lot of the newer farmers, or the second, third, whatever generation farmers are moving over to a sort of a what I like to call an integrated pest management system, where we're coming onto the farm and we're doing several jobs at once, several pests at once, multi-species type setups. I think someone alluded to it before with filling up a bait station and setting some traps and possibly doing some shooting. Just value for money while you're there, get these things done. Some of the other pests that we're doing under this, they're arguably more devastating to the biodiversity on the farm than the half a dozen possums that they may or may not have come in over the year. The regional pest management plan, it's already got rules and enforcement processes to get uncompliant landowners to act. I think the council just needs to use them. I kind of think, why should everyone else be burdened with the cost of the few that don't do anything? RTC numbers are sort of below 3% across the region. I think we've got a system that's working, and if it's working, why fix it? It's not broken. The new monitoring process of having no more than 3 possums on one monitoring line, I think that's a great idea, but I think to keep that right, it needs to be done with leg hold traps, not chew cards. Leg hold traps, you can only catch 1 possum in it. Chew cards, it's quite likely a possum will walk along and chew 1 card, and then 10 metres later find another one that's got the same peanut butter in it and have a chew on that. You may end up with 1 possum triggering non-compliance on 1 line. That's about it for the contractor hat, so I'll move on to my ratepayer one. Basically, as a ratepayer, I don't want to be paying more rates. I'm already funding for possum control. The urban guys, they pay for pest control. Maybe City Council, Hastings District Council, they already use contractors in their parks and reserves to keep possums down, and I think they're doing a good job at that. Private urban land is covered by Hawke's Bay Regional Council and their Possum Advisory Service. And yet again, why should they have to pay for the few people that don't follow the rules or commercial forestry? Okay, last one, horticulturalist hat. Possums aren't the problem. Rabbits and birds are causing much more financial losses and problems on the orchards than possums ever will. I had a bit of a read of the CBA numbers. For horticulturalists, I think it's just wrong, and possibly wrong for the other industries. Bottom of page 2, estimated quantitative impacts was $525 to $1,778 per hectare per year. I can't see that actually happening in orchards, from my view. Page 8, it says, the that possums are a major horticultural pest. I disagree with this, and I think most other horticulturists would as well. They don't cause a lot of problems on orchards. All of this sort of estimates and guesses is probably throwing out the benefits. So yeah, I think that probably needs another look at. Another thing that got me a bit confused, the expenditure of 3.5 million divided into the pro-ring area, was roughly about 1 million hectares, equates to $3.50 per hectare. That doesn't line up with what you'd indicated from $6 to $12 per hectare rate mentioned on page 9 of the proposal. So yeah, I think there's probably some checking done on those numbers, just to make sure they are right. In conclusion, I think the proposal has some good points, such as putting forestry under the same rules as everyone else. I think the awareness and an intent to improve native biodiversity is a great thing. I'm a bit worried about the Hawke's Bay Regional Council taking complete control over changing the entire possum control industry, leaving smaller contractors without work in favour of large national companies who put profit above everything else. I think the current plan and has rules and consequences in place to meet the challenges mentioned on page 2 of the proposal. It just needs to use some of the robust enforcement and non-compliance. It also has provisions for help with management plans for those that want them. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you. Thanks, Jake. Councillor Taylor, first question.
Excellent. Thanks, Jake. You said large-scale ground-based contracting is less effective. Why do you believe that, and what is more effective in your view?
I think an area, let's say 100,000 hectares, and one contractor is controlling the whole thing, the likelihood of missing an area or getting away with missing an area is there because of the monitoring protocols. You don't monitor the whole property, you monitor random areas. If there's some nasty gully that's got lots of prickles on it, you might go around the outside of it and carry on. You might miss it altogether, knowing very well that the monitor's probably not going to go down there either. So you end up with missed areas, which are generally prime possum habitat, real scrubby gullies and ravines, etc.
Okay. Also, some of your clients perhaps, but you said that there's a lot of new age farmers, maybe was the word, I'm not sure if you said that, but they're focusing more on integrated pest management. So not just possums, it's a bit of everything. Are you doing that as well for your clients?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And what kind of, I'm just thinking about it, how many of your clients, what percentage of your clients focus more on that than possum control, on a more of an integrated pest management?
I haven't worked out a percentage, but
Around
at a guess it would be 20%.
Thank you.
Our farming stock are reasonably aged, so therefore we don't have that many young people who have got this kind of attitude by the sounds of it. One question. So you've got 400 clients. Are you covering a whole area, or you just got pockets? Once again, it's we have those who actually taking very good care of their properties and enlisting you to do the work. But you know of their neighbours who, for instance, don't do this kind of work with a contractor. So are you covering large areas where you just know an area is covered because you actually do all the work, or is it just more sporadic how you work with your 400 clients?
It's a mix. Some PCA areas, I've got the majority of clients in that area, and I do the whole PCA area at the same time. It's just efficient to get there and move from one farm to the next, and you get around all the farms in a logical way. But as farms have dropped off or whatever, we've had to look for more work, and yeah, we do. I mean, the furthest we travel is to Mahanga and up north, and yeah, you spend just as much time travelling as you do actually doing the work. There's no other clients up that way. We used to do all the peninsula, but that's now been taken over by the regional council to the possum eradication plan there. And there are other ones that ring me up when they've had enough of the last contractor, or they've maybe changed owners or whatever it may be. That's a mix.
John?
So Jake, if there were a good contracting process put in place to cover this, the entire possum control areas, that would be something you would be in support of, from what I took from your comments.
Depending which hat I'm wearing.
Well, yeah, okay.
As
just
a
elaborate a
contractor,
little
yes, I
bit.
would.
From a contractor's point of view, so long as the process was equitable and fair, sounds like you would support it. From a landowner's point of view, as long as the costings were not imposing greater costs on you than at present, you would support it. The third one was from a horticulturist point of view, which I don't think. I don't think that comes into it too much, in my mind, anyway.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of horticulture in Hawke's Bay, but I suppose as someone that's possibly going to be subject to possum control, I'd like to have the control over who comes onto my property and who I use, and what methods I used.
That goes without saying, I think. Thank you, Chair.
I support your horticulture point of view. We're definitely not a pest at all.
You know.
Sorry, just one last quick question, Jake Weiss in there. A bit similar to Councillor Van Bakes, you've got your clients dotted around, but it's the ones in between that we know aren't using a contractor or aren't doing their own control that's, the ones that we're concerned about.
Yes.
So if we go to a all contractor model, what's the capacity like out there for, you and others to take up that slack that's not been used now?
The upscaling would just need to happen. I can't employ 50 guys when I've only got work for 2, and it's a bit of a chicken and egg type thing. The point I made around the people that are not doing it, that aren't compliant, regional council do a lot of monitoring and maybe some targeted monitoring in those areas, and then make them do it. They're the ones that are dragging the chain.
Yep.
Okay, thanks a lot, Jake.
Okay.
Now, we did have Paul Rowbottom due to speak now. He has put in his apology. And so we do have some written statements that we could read out, that I think Lauren's going to take care of that for people that did want to be here but can't.
Yes. So I will read out a submission from Anita Smith. She's presenting on behalf of Gus Smith. I have 3 concerns: cost, health and safety, and lifestyle blocks. This is an extra cost to me. I find it simple enough to check and top up bait stations as I do my regular farm animal checks, etc. We also have Tim's kill traps set in areas that we have seen possums in the past, i.e. where we have planted poplar trees. However, last one caught was 3 years ago, and my dogs have in the past found possum bodies, presumably died from poison, but none for over 4 years. I put this down to trapping, poisoning, and spotlight shooting that I've carried out since I bought my property 12 years ago. Yes, we did have some, not many, around about 10 years ago. Health and safety for the contractor. My farm is rolling to steep. When dry, 2/3 is reachable by 2-wheel drive. In wet, a quad bike can't get to places, and tracks are dangerous if one does not know how to approach them. I have replaced the only bridge with a culvert, and I don't want a Berryman's B contractor bridge situation. Landowners need the option of escorting the contractor over their land for his safety, and to use landowners' vehicles to cut down the chance of spreading contamination from farm to farm. We started with 1 lifestyler in our front paddock, subdivision done by previous owner, and now we have 3 with a 4th going in at present. They're all lovely people, but some don't even like Roundup spray. Definitely not for poison. For possum, spotlight shooting is out, and kill traps, I agree with them, not a nice sight. Dead possums and their pet cat, which is much worse. If contractors are employed, the cost should be spread out by all landowners, no matter how small. Our 4 lifestyle blocks have divided up one 4-hectare block. And some education to people living in rural areas so that a tame possum living in their woolshed, especially that they leave out for, is not a good idea. Thank you for hearing my concerns. Anita and Gus Smith.
Move on to the next one.
The next one. Bear with me. Okay, this is a written statement from Shane Hyde. Bear with me. Okay. Hi, please be advised we cannot attend as I had liked to. Possums are feeding on pine pollen, so I need to maximise captures over the next couple of weeks to help the larger Piketty forest. My concern is about the industry entry level contractor and how their start in business can be encouraged through smaller individual contracts, either with HBRC or the private landowners. I do wonder if landscape pest control can be delivered then maintained by spiralling outwards from a central starting point. We ourselves experienced rapid possum and rat reinfestation once the extension of the working zone was limited by boundaries. From a 56-hectare property that had 0% possums and rats at the start of the operation, we have captured a further 326 possums and 530 rats within 12 months of defending the gains. Even a matter of days between the control efforts provides space for unmanaged pest movement. Today I collected 104 possums from the pine forest. Capture was cyanide delivered last night from just 36 Enviromat 100 units. Only 5 cyanide baits in each unit, with 3 units having no visitation on the night. Cyanide was still available in most units. The beauty of this technology is a larger area can be implemented with toxins automatically, simultaneously, after a staged single visit to site, scheduled pre-feeding, thus dramatically reducing the opportunity of operation overlaps and delivery delays. From a climate emergency and carbon footprint perspective, there was only 2 visits to the site, enabling the capture of those possums within a landscape that is non-economic for convention for operators to participate. With kind regards, Shane Hyde. Sorry. And the last written statement of the day is from Kurt Zandt, who's unable to make it today as well. Private property rights are in danger yet again. A free society is determined by the amount of private ownership that is allowed and even encouraged within. Therefore, in any free nation, there is no greater responsibility of government than to protect and encourage the entrepreneurialism of private ownership. From farms to factories, the efficiency of private ownership is unparalleled in performance, profitability, and sustainability. In contrast, the more a country falls away from privatisation and becomes oppressive of private property rights, it then enters into the inefficiency of socialism. When a society is fully enveloped in socialism, the state controls nearly every aspect of the society, inclusive of services, products, religion, and even the media. However, private ownership is usually limited or omitted. Another interesting reality is that the natural resources of socialist nations are almost always detrimentally affected and eventually looted. This is simply because of the ineffectiveness of government. Our local and regional councils are currently setting very dangerous precedents by the obvious usurping of privatised land ownership via property right violations. First, it was the extremely aggressive PDP, and now usurpation of property rights via your proposed council-controlled possum control. This measure proposes to take the privatisation of said control away from the landowner and transfer it to the regional council. By so doing, you are taking the management right away from the legitimate owners. This may seem innocent enough to you from the view of your office, but by approving these measures, you'll be taking a massive step into socialism via taking away my management right. The idea that somehow council could be more effective at possum control than said owners is at best comical relief. I cannot think of one item that a state currently controls in this nation that is efficient and effective. If the council were to take over possum control, 2 things would immediately need to increase: your budget and our rates. Our rates have already astronomically been raised this past year. Furthermore, you are arrogant to openly attempt to take away our management rights, but even more delusional if you really believe the council could better control possum numbers than the private property owner. I predict a massive increase in possum numbers if this were to happen. I have experienced the ineffectiveness of your leadership. Case in point, all of New Zealand infrastructure under state control. Our roading system, our health system, our school system, shall I continue? In fact, if you were to send possum control contractors out onto Yapati Road, they would first need it maintained in order to get here, and more cones won't help. In fact, let this letter also serve as a request to fix the bloody roads already. Perhaps before you go any further on adding yet another responsibility to your ineffective council, you could send someone out here and see what a sorry state you have allowed our roading to befall. You're not even providing the most basic necessities of infrastructure, yet you want to take on more responsibility. What a joke. It is obvious to me that this current council seems more concerned about the taking of private property rights than actually providing any assistance or doing any possum control. At some point, we, the landowners, will become unaccepting of your leadership and require your resignation. Instead of working with private owners in these areas of concern, the council is aggressively seeking to sever the rights from private owners. It is also obvious that current council members and teams have insufficient knowledge of property rights. I do have extensive understanding via a long history and experience from real estate in several nations, states, and regions. I have personally been a licensed real estate professional with over 30 years and have been involved in thousands of private property transactions and dealings. What I'm saying is that I'm not misinformed about how aggressive this current council have been with both its PDP and now this proposed possum control legislation. There is way more here at stake than just possum numbers. Your plans neglect to respect my property rights. This council team apparently needs informing and training in respects to private property and the rights that we hold with title. I'm attaching a working paper that explains how property rights are defined by New Zealand Treasury, public and open access. I do have an appendix here which I can pass to the governance team. In order for property to fit under the banner of private, it must have 4 rights intact. Your proposed council possum control would aggressively take away the management right from the owners and transfer that right to council. This has drastic meaning for all affected landowners. It immediately makes us subservient to government regulation and interpretation thereof of said land, since the council will control the management right. Effectively, the council would become the legal owner of this management right of our property in respect to possum control. This is a very tricky way to take away private property, and is actually democratic socialism in action. In fact, as the management right is severed, private property actually starts to be identified as common or even public property. Please see chart, which I will promulgate shortly. Effectively, if council can simply control the management right, then they can decide and determine who can or who cannot have access to these areas. At that point, we, the legal owners, would not be able to control what is allowed, access to our private lands in respect to possum control. This in turn takes away 2 other rights called access and exclusion. The potential loss of private property rights in this council's possum control proposal is very real. If you proceed, you will be oppressing private property rights and should be held liable. In addition, we are already controlling possum numbers ourselves with a much greater efficiency than any council would or ever could. Our official request is to therefore leave possum control to the landowners and learn to respect private property rights. And that concludes that.
Still got one more. Have you?
Who have I got?
Eric DeVries?
No, one.
Unfortunately, Eric never submitted a
Oh, never submitted.
Yeah,
Okay.
unfortunately never provided a written statement, and neither did Paul Rowbottom.
Okay, so that's the end of
Correct.
those. Now, look, we're due to break for lunch at 11:50, and we've got no more scheduled before lunch, but Neil is here and was due at 12:40. But Neil, if you'd like to just to step up and present your submission.
Which number is
Neil is number 7 on our schedule. 144.
Don't leave without it.
Name's Neil Aiken, I farm at Tutera. I've had TB, I've had some suspects TBs. Bound on the forestry, I'm going to end up with 4 forestry blocks. I've had problems with that one, numbers have gone up and down like anything from 4 1 year to 73 to 93 to 172 in 4 years. The control of the job is forestry do their own stuff. We got Osprey doing ours, which is very good. They do it regularly every year. And there's different rules for everyone. The rules need to be made the same for everyone. access has to be the biggest problem of the whole lot, because this TB that's out here now, it'll be 6 years since they found TB, and they're just getting in on top of it now. The TB spread from the coast halfway across the North Island now because of it, because they haven't got in there and done the stuff in the first place. They need to have a rule for everyone exactly the same. They need to have a rule so they can get in and get these places sorted out. All these forestry blocks are on a different rating to us. We're on 2% at home. The national plan's 5%. I know the council's on 4 now, which is good. But you might as well have it at 50%, because if 2% breaks the TB cycle, it should all be at 2%. And it can be done. In 2001, I've been on the place 30 years at home. In 2001, council come in and done our blocks at home. Before that, we could go out and shoot 150 possums in a night. I had some fellas from overseas, hour and a half, they'd shot 150 possums and they had blisters all over their hands. The guns got that hot. That's what it was like all the time. When they come and done it, they got 1,583 possums, I think, of 388 hectares. I said to the two young fellas when they first come, you'll get 500 possums out of the 8 hectares down there. And they looked at me as that idiot. They come back after a week and asked me, how do I know? And I said, those 2 pine trees, we picked up 200 possums in 4 nights in a row under it. This is where your monitoring is all wrong, because it's all done from a screen. You know, the pine trees, when they're out at the right time, they come. There's 2 pine trees out of that whole block. They caught those. Same as when the willows are out. They're all there. The monitoring system does not work. That's the Osprey one. Your true card ones are a little bit different. It's just done on a screen where it is, and if you have a look where most of the monitoring lines are done, if you're hunting for fur or trying to get rid of possums, you'd go broke. This access stuff is the biggest problem, it seems to be, and we've got to be consistent. One rule for everyone, and it needs to be run by one outfit, you know, and I believe not so much the council should have the contract, it should be subsidised, it should be done by subbies, and that makes it a bit more competitive for everyone. The cost of this job, Paul Harris hit it on the head a little bit, but he didn't finish it off. As he said, we pay for the tags, we pay when we get killed. It's only a certain amount of farmers pay for that. All the traders don't pay for it. They say 60% of the money comes from the farmers, but it's probably only coming 50% of the farmers. It's not only the $5.50 they take out. Osprey use them for accountancy and the bank and that, so we're actually losing on our schedule as well. It's costing us more again. So we actually pay for the regional council rates. We pay Osprey, they take the money out of our kill sheets, we pay out our levies, and we do all our work for nothing. The farmers do everything for nothing, and that shouldn't be, because the farmers should be actually be the first people to get paid, because they've got the only tool in New Zealand that picks up TB. Now what's happening now is Ospreys are running around saying they're getting their numbers down on their TB reactors. They haven't got a clue what they're talking about, because you could have for a whole year you could have 10 TBs clear and 10 positive every week until the end of the year, and have 5, and they'd say they've only got 5, but you could have 500 possums with TB or 500 animals with TB, and that's it. This getting down to this numbers, they think by getting down to numbers is fix the problem. It's not. The problem is what caused the problem. It's not the TB in our stock. It's what's caused the problem. And the problem is they haven't done their job. They took over from you fellas in 2013, and some of those blocks haven't been done yet. The main block that they keep talking about It'll be next year, it'll be 10 years when they get down to 2%. It's too long. That's just why this TB spread so far. As far as you fellas down here, getting farmers to do it, I disagree with that 100% because farmers should be farming. That's what they're there for, do their job. And if it's controlled by everyone gets a fair lick at the dole, it all gets done evenly. At the moment, it doesn't get done evenly. These forestry blocks are not getting done regular and not getting done consistent, That's all I've got to say.
Great, thanks for that, Neil. Questions? John?
Thanks, Neil. What sort of TB reactor numbers are still coming out of the Tūtera area? Or have you been clear for a number of years? You did mention something.
No, there's been quite a lot in Tūtera. There's another one now right on the beach, big station. They got 1,100 cows and it's going to ruin their trading, I would think, a little bit, even though they've changed the rules. You put white tags in. So it's from the coast now right back to Ngāmatea, this TB problem.
So you got a number of
movements in there, yep.
Movement control.
Yeah, they're getting out of they're getting the numbers down now, but we're not out of the woodwork yet because someone is going to get a repeater like Waitara Valley, you see.
Yeah.
And we're on movement control. We don't want to be on movement control. That movement control in Waitara Valley have been 20 years coming up now. We don't want to be like that. They seem to think the problem is once they get the numbers down, that's it, they'll hand it over to the council. Well, I don't believe the council should have that job of cleaning the rest of the mess up that they left us.
So, through you, Mr. Chair, just to clarify, the forestry blocks, which I understand surround your property.
Yep.
They're being treated by Osprey at the same time as your property.
Yeah, they got a different rating, which is really good. And I actually asked at our last time on the committee, and I actually asked the last meeting, how come across the river me is on 10 BMI and we're on 12, We should be working together. Tried to get it to, so the contractors on our side would do about the same size as there because they're 6 or 8 months apart, and they feed backwards and forwards. You'd know that, Paul, pretty well, You do an area and an area doesn't get done for a while or something, it feeds back.
But in essence, the forestry areas are all down to below 2% residual trap catch, the same as your property.
It should be, yeah, it is in our area now.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, the Mohawk is going very well now. In 2013, when they took over, I think it went 4 years before they'd done anything. And they've brought it down from 25 BMI to 10 now, which is really good. They've got a guy in there consistently doing a whole area, and I reckon that's brilliant.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Neil, there's been a real good diverse range of speakers this morning with different focuses, where they're coming from. Yours obviously TB. Can you talk, we had a previous speaker talk about, cats and toxo and the cost to him in terms of his farming operation. Can you talk to any figures around the cost TB is?
Yes, I can. When we originally had it, we had a lady from Palmerston, Sarah, for Osprey. She was very good. She come up, and I think there was 10 of us. They put this through the same system as Bogus, as a budget thing. I'm not a trader, and for 6 months I was 760. Now I can quote Lloyd Holloway at $428,000 for 6 months loss. That's what they budgeted on.
So you talk about, the different costs, the levies, the rates and so on.
Yep.
So if you paid all those and you had no possums and no TB, it would be well worth it.
Yeah, that's another thing that should be, the rating system should be different for canopy, because on grassland, you've only got a few trees and gullies and that, but you get in those big patches of gorse and scrub and those big pine blocks and that, it's a lot harder to do. The costing should be done the same as it is now. Contractors have to make a living, and all those blocks should be the same, priced out same. You can't price, it's not fair to price a fellow with a farm the same as it is a block of gorse or scrub or anything else. Because, that's where the most habitat's in that rubbish.
So what you're saying is we should be looking at canopy as a guide to the rating?
That's how it's done now. And at home, when it's monitored, I actually got on well with Jim at Mohaka, and he was saying he got 17 lines and we only got 10 on ours, and he had 2,193 hectares in that block, and we got 4,683 or something hectares, and we only had 10. And what it come back is they work on canopy, or why they put the monitors, so many monitors in, and it should be similar on a farm.
Great. Right. I think that's all. No more questions. Thanks a lot, Neil.
Okay, Eddie, thank you for the opportunity.
Good insight.
We're still,
Yeah, lunch is 11:45-ish.
yeah, we're still quarter of an hour off lunch. Just there's no more afternoon submitters in our crowd, is there? No. No. So we just knock off early.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's an early knock off.
June till 12:40.
Yeah, 12:40 is our restart time, although I've just heard from Rhea and she's not going to be here any earlier than 12:55. So
She is coming, but not in time.
I asked if she could come early, but
Okay.
she can't. So
Staff could contact other
Yes,
submitters.
we've got two other submitters that we can contact
Yeah.
to fill those gaps.
either way, we'll look to reconvene around that 12:40, 12:45. Thank you.